This conference will now be recorded.
Well, good morning. Welcome to the Worksite Wellness Council of Louisville's ongoing series of virtual conversations. This is it's obviously March 2021, and we're happy to have you here this morning, those of you that joined. And what I'd like to do is sort of quickly pass the baton to Mary Stewart, who is going to, she's one of our programming co-chairs, and she's going to introduce our facilitator for this morning's conversation.
Thank you, Matt. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our rainy March conversation. Hopefully staying nice and not dry this morning. So I'd like to introduce Nate Hughes. He's CEO of RxProtect. He's originally from Noblesville, Indiana, and is often in our Louisville area. So he founded RxProtect in 2019, forward-thinking industry expert with lots of national recognition with the mega pharmaceutical companies. And so without further ado, I'll turn it over to him and we'll hear what he has to say this morning. So thanks, Nate, for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. Thanks, Matt. It's my pleasure. Thank you for taking a few minutes this morning and giving me a chance to just talk a little bit about my company and educate just a little bit and see if it's a good fit for what you all are up to. You know, I've been pretty excited to share this with you. I think I learned, 8 weeks ago that this was going to take place. And, Tiffany played a big role in that as well. So thanks, Tiffany. So RxProtect, again, founded in December of 2019, a few months before a global pandemic hit. And I'm not sure if you've ever started a business, but one, it's pretty hard to do. And two, doing it right before a pandemic hits is kind of like, uh-oh, here we go, But we've done well. And we're super excited as to where the company's going. I come from the wellness space. There I am, top left. And I ran I want to share this with you because I think it'll relate to you guys. But I ran a boutique on-site wellness company in Carmel, Indiana. And we had about 7 on-site primary care clinics with self-insured employer groups. We did wellness challenges. We did biometric screenings. We had certified diabetes educators. We had the whole gamut of wellness solutions. And obviously, for those types of companies who come in and do wellness, you're trying to drive engagement. You're obviously trying to reduce costs, but one of the main targets and focuses is really that high-risk population. And no matter what we did and what programs we introduced and what kind of path we took to educate those folks and try to get them off their medicines or help them make lifestyle changes, better lifestyle changes and better lifestyle choices, there seemed to be one thing that always stood out, and that was the kind of financial burden and just kind of mental burden of some of these high cost brand name only specialty medications that they were taking. And with some of our clients, the employee was paying more each month for their Humira, for example, than their own car payment. That's a big problem. And a lot of those folks are living paycheck to paycheck as it is. And that's kind of where this idea of RxProtect was founded. The 2 folks at the bottom are 2 of my advisors. You may or may not know them, but they're actually out of the Louisville area and have a company called Thrive 365, Kurt Howe and Steve Down. Top right is our president, Kanishka Mappa, and together we make up RxProtect. So first things first, I don't usually start this way, but I feel like I just want to kind of ease your mind a little bit. In regard to employee benefits and creating these benefit plans and all the work that goes into it, just want to say kudos to everybody on this call, because putting together a plan that balances the company's alignment and budget along with the benefit and hopefully giving the best plan available to the employees is hard to do, and that's a lot of work, not just the creation of it and putting together and aligning the dots, connecting the dots, but open enrollment and all these things that come into it. So first, I want to tell you right out the gate, although we are in the RX space, your company isn't going to have to change anything to run our program. And what I mean by that is simply, we're not looking to carve out meds. You don't need to change your PBM. You don't need to change your broker. You don't need to change your carrier. We are a complementary service to what you do. So the reason I started with that is because, you put a lot of work into creating the programs and offerings that you currently have at your company. And I don't want to disrupt that. I don't want to change that. I want to come in and be a complementary service. Obviously by I mean RxProtect. And because we are a complementary service, we are not benefit dependent, meaning you can launch our program, we can run the RxProtect program at any time, and it's not dependent on the time of open enrollment. So let's talk about the problem real quick, and then we'll get into the solution. Some really interesting data, and at this point I have probably 70 different sets of RX claims data that I've reviewed for companies just like yours, anywhere from 100 employees to 25,000 employees. So across the whole gamut. And what I've noticed, and maybe you have as well, is that when it comes to brand name only kind of specialty medications, these high cost medications, about 1 to 3% of your employee population that are making up, actually accounting for 40 to 60% of your total spend. And I think that's really powerful, and you're probably going to get annoyed here in a minute because I tend to say the same thing a couple different times. I'm going to use my fancy little laser pointer here, see how this works. But this is data. This is real data. This is real life. And this is actually a recent example that I saw that I thought was really powerful. And maybe you have or haven't dug in this far into the RX claims data for your companies. But I just wanted to share with you some of the common themes that I see every day. And this company had about 500 employees, so maybe 1,000 members, 1,200 members, so spouse independents. There were 13 meds that really stuck out. Really, really stuck out. These are all specialty medications, a couple insulins thrown in there as well. And what you'll notice is that these top 13 meds are being taken by 30 members, but are costing $1.17 million over a 12-month period, right? So we all know, obviously, it's expensive. Medications are expensive. But do we really know, do we really dig in and notice that about 1 to 3% of an employee population is costing as much as they are, just simply because of these brand name only. There's no generic option, unfortunately, to a lot of these and high cost medications. And these are cost to the plan, right? So I'm not including deductibles or anything like that. So again, 13 medications, 30 employees, $1.17 million over a 12-month period. I think that's pretty powerful. And that sums up our target group and really where RxProtect was founded. And so RxProtect, well, to kind of summarize it with some cool graphics. Again, 1 to 3% of an employee population, 40 to 60% of spends. And some data I found really interesting, and I look at data all the time and studies and articles and all these things. And I think companies know, the aggregate spends. You might look every year and say, oh my gosh, we spent $4 million in RX spend this year, the aggregate spend. But do you know the cost of your specialty meds? And do you know how many employees are actually on those? It's very few employees, but a very high cost. And only about 1/3 of employers actually know, specifically in regard to specialty medications, what that spend is. And the big problem, as we know, the cost of those specialty medications, those brand name only options, that's not going down anytime soon, and actually is increasing by about 13% in cost per year. But we can help. So here's how we can help. RxProtect, I've created from my previous world some really great partnerships with a few wholesale specialty pharmacies in the U.S. and Canada to deliver through mail order, right? Certain specialty medications for significantly less than what a plan would pay, and mailing them straight to the doorstep of employees. This is a little bit outside the box. It's definitely a forward-thinking solution, but we're essentially bypassing kind of the multi-layers of folks who seem to be getting a cut of the medication cost and are one of the reasons why these costs are so expensive. And so going straight from wholesale to the doorstep of the employee for certain medications based on your plan, and we'll get into that in a moment, can save your company 30 to 60% per medication per month. And these medications that we are targeting through our program are costing your company anywhere from $30,000 to $80,000 per year per person. So a 30 to 60% savings many times is hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars per year in savings by helping just 1 to 3% of your employee population. We are a third-party vendor, meaning we're not running our program through insurance. So I'm sure you have questions about that. We can get into that in a moment. But essentially, if we're helping 1 to 3% of your folks, we're billing you as a third party on the back end. And one of the reasons that we can get it for 30 to 60% less is because we are running it outside of that insurance process. So the traditional pharmacy, depending on your PBM, they're not getting a cut, and the carrier and all those other folks who seem to make the medications, pretty expensive. Because we are saving 30 to 60% for the employer, we've been allowing, and companies allow their employees to actually get their medication at no cost, which can be pretty powerful, especially from my experience. If you have an employee living paycheck to paycheck and can eliminate a $100 copay or $200 copay, whatever it may be for their specific specialty med, you're putting money back into their pocket, essentially without having to give them a raise. But you're showing that you value them by just providing this medication that they need to take for free and eliminating that burden. We also utilize patient assistance programs. So not to get too far in the weeds, but there are many programs on the market that are great for employees. Like copay cards are awesome. Rx savings cards are great. And that's great for the employee. But just because it lowers the amount for the employee, it's not lowering the amount for your company. Your company is still paying that full cost on the back end, which is for Humira $45,000 a year, right? It's a lot of money, no matter what these copay cards are. But there are certain programs in the market I'm sure you've heard about. And if you watch TV, every other commercial is a medication commercial, and at the end it'll say, please call AstraZeneca if you can't afford your medication. Well, they're referring to these programs. And there are certain contingents to be approved, but I've utilized these programs for over 4 years for some of those higher risk folks that we were talking about in my on-site wellness world, previous life. I've had a lot of success with it for folks that meet a certain income requirement, have a certain copay. There's a lot of contingents that I won't really get into, but our system and our platform is built to know that if Mr. Jones is on Humira and he meets certain criteria based on an intake form that we have the patient fill out, which I'll get into in a moment as well, if they're likely to qualify, we'll push them through this patient assistance program and actually facilitate the entire program on their behalf. And if they get approved, it's great news for everybody, because that is also ran outside of insurance. And the employee would get the medication for free for 12 months. Again, these are $50,000 medications, so for free for 12 months, while your company is also relieved of that cost because the employee is getting it for free and because it's ran outside of insurance. So the dual program is essentially the mail order solution. And then for those folks that may qualify, we'll advocate on their behalf for our patient assistance as well. So I do want to come back briefly here to the same exact data that we were looking at. And based on a data projection and obviously 100% engagement, which we know is perfect world, but we are only looking at 30 members. You could take these 30 members, and if they had been through in this RxProtect program, you'll notice that the prices that we can get these medications for are significantly less. As I said, that 30 to 60% range in savings. But Stelara, you're not going to have a lot of folks on Stelara, but if you do, it's going to cost you about $80,000 a year as a company. This average cost is a quarterly cost, $21,000, and we can get it including our fee. Our fees baked into the cost here for these projections. We can get it for $14,400, right? It's pretty simple. What we're saving your company $6,800 per quarter per person that's on Stelara. Humira is incredibly popular. This plan, I don't know why or how, but they're getting killed by Humira. It should not be this expensive, but for some reason it is for this plan. $5,800 for 40 milligrams of Humira. There's 9 folks on it. It's costing this company a lot of money, but just through Humira alone, we could have saved this company a little over $167,000 just by helping these 9 folks. There's power in numbers. There's power in this data, and again, it's by helping 1 to 3% of a population, yet driving for this company $400,000 back to the bottom line. You know, and one way to think about this, if this employee on Stelara would have gone to CVS or Walgreens to pick it up, you know, it would have cost the plan $21,000. Or they can enroll into RxProtect program. We ship it to their house. They get it for free with no copay, and it only costs the company $14,400. So at the most basic level, that's the easiest way to look at that and kind of interpret that. You know, the traditional pharmacy is pretty expensive. You know what? Does anybody have any? I kind of want to open it up a little bit. I feel like I've been talking a little bit. Does anybody have any questions on what we've gone over so far?
I do real quick. This has been great so far. I would like to know if there's a cost share option. So you said originally that it would be saving the company a lot of money and it would be free to the employee, but if the employer wanted there to be some kind of cost share option to split, is that a possibility, or is it just up to the employer at that point?
Yeah, it's up to the employer. I encourage to drive the highest levels of engagement. You know, I do try to encourage like no copay or no cost share, so that there's incentive for the employee to do it outside of them just receiving it at their doorstep. And if RxProtect is able to save, if you looked at Humira on this example, if we're able to save, what is that, $2,000, $2,100, $2,000 for your company, you know, why bother charging your employee $50 or $100 or whatever that cost share is going to be, you know? Now, if you come up with a better reason and that's just how you want to do it, yeah, we can do that. It would just be a fee to them to basically utilize this program. We can charge them exactly what their copay is going to be or less. But again, we're not running it through insurance, so it's not technically like a insuranceable copay type of thing.
Okay. All right.
Does that make sense?
So what would happen if they were on a high deductible health plan and it wasn't necessarily a copay situation?
Yeah,
I guess
so if they're on a high deductible. Yep.
Sorry.
Yep. So, oh, you're fine. I apologize. If they're on a high deductible, their normal benefits and expenses would apply to that deductible. But in regard to this specific medication, that would not be applied toward that deductible.
Okay.
If you look at the savings that we're generating, and we were to build an Excel sheet and say, employee gets it for free, company pays full cost, or employee pays their deductible, employer pays their share, you know, through CVS and the traditional route. you're going to see at the bottom line, your company's still saving a lot of money.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Sure, pleasure.
Nate, just a quick question just around, minimum size of, companies, just because attendees could be, small, medium, large organizations. And if you've seen a trend in industries, I guess, where you've seen more of, a need for this. I'm just curious on that end.
Yeah, great question. So it's certainly a numbers game. Obviously, the more folks you have, the higher this total number of members is going to be in regard to how many targets or folks that we can help. But I would say I've looked at data of 50 employees, and there were 2 folks on Humira. So that made a lot of sense because we could just help those 2 folks, right? Municipalities, I've seen their data. For some reason, it's pretty rough, meaning there's a little bit more opportunity there. Manufacturing, school systems has been huge. So those are the few industries where the data really stands out, and the averages are even higher than what I kind of project. And I tend to project very conservative savings, very conservative projection. But I don't think there's a minimum. Essentially, this process is, actually, it's a good segue into my next, I don't know why this isn't working, just a minute here. My next slide is getting into this process. And the first thing and easiest thing to do, if you're sitting there wondering, I wonder if RxProtect can help. Well, I can tell you for free. You can redact your company info, redact PHI. I don't need anything except for the basic elements of an Rx file. And the easiest thing to usually send is the top 25, kind of highest cost over the past 12 months or 24. If you have a data analytics system, that should be very easy to get. If there's a different way you need to send it to me and it's a full file or top 10, that's fine too. And simply what we do, I go in, I learn basically based on the data and the medications that are real and actual toward your company, whether or not we can help, and if we can, which medications we'd be targeting, how many folks that actually makes up, what that projected savings would be based on the number of folks on that medication and what it's currently costing your plan. That's it. And I'll dial up a couple different scenarios. And at that point, really, I'm giving that data back to you and just saying, look, like, depending on your appetite for this program, meaning we could go after 3 meds, and here are the 3, and here's the savings that we could generate, and here's how many people that actually involves. We could go after 5, we could go after 10. The most that we're looking at right now with a few folks in our pipeline is 10. But we do have contract where one company, they're very large, just wants us to go after 3 to start with. So really, it's up to your company, what you want to give a shot with, and see how it goes. So we can, if you're a little hesitant, we can prove the program on a few meds and then add more down the road. Or if you're like, you know what, Nate, just come in and help these 30 folks and try to save me $400,000 because we want to hire some new people or add some new tech, or I don't know, give people bonuses, whatever you want to use it for. It's going back to your bottom line. That's the easiest thing. So if you're sitting there thinking, well, we only have 40 employees and this program probably isn't going to apply to me. Well, you don't know. Send me the data. I'll look at it and I'll let you know. I mean, if we can't help, we can't help. And we're making a list of medications that, we call targets. And it's based on your actual data. So that's it. And in every scenario that I'd be giving back to you and saying, look, we can help with these 3 meds, these 5 or these 7, whatever it may be, every medication on that list is going to save you money through our program. So I'm not going to waste your time. If we're only going to save you 5%, I'm probably not going to bother with it because it's probably not worth it to you. I'm looking for, 20, 25, 30 or higher percent in savings. And then you'll know that when we launch this RxProtect program with your company, every employee that enrolls is going to save you money because that's how this program is built. There's no gray area. It's hard dollar cost. You were paying $6,000, now you're paying $4,000, something like that, right? very easy to launch, whether this messaging is driven by you, the employer, or RxProtect, or in collaboration. However it is you are delivering important messages to your folks, we're going to message, we're going to advocate, communicate to those members on those specific medications. And, the messaging, it's not required for them to enroll, right? We're not making a requirement. Again, we're not canceling their current benefits. But the messaging is pretty direct, and it has been at least, in saying, look, if you are on one of these medications, and then there's the list of medications, please enroll to this program. Because the company knows, you guys know, that every employee that enrolls is going to save you a lot of money. And they're going to be getting the exact medication they need, but it's going to save you money at the same time, which is pretty cool. RxProtect, our tech platform, fully HIPAA compliant. I mean, we passed a rigorous, very strict HIPAA compliant cybersecurity assessment from one of the largest hospital systems in the US. So if we can get by them, we can get by anybody. That was a lot of work, but it was good for us. So our platform is fully compliant, and that's how an employee enrolls into our program. And it's simple for them to enroll. They actually upload a copy of their current script, which there's an FAQ and instructions on how to get that, which is a very simple phone call to your doctor or your pharmacy. But they upload it just like they would upload an image to an email. And then there's an intake form they fill out. Intake form takes about 2 minutes, but essentially it's asking these appropriate questions, helps us filter, okay, this person may or may not qualify for patient assistance, those contingent questions we were talking a little bit about for patient assistance, but it's easy for them to enroll. The minute they do, one of our pharmacists reaches out to that member and establishes that one-on-one relationship, which is really, really important. Obviously, dealing with medications and people's meds and what they need is highly sensitive, very important. Customer service has to be great, has to be timely. Everything has to fall into line. And so the pharmacist piece is incredibly important to us. That pharmacist reaches out, provides any consultation that is needed, answers any questions, establishes logistics of delivery of the medication, and starts to go over, the member's situation, talks about drug-to-drug interactions, make sure that the member isn't on other medications that may be acting in a negative way. After the pharmacist talks to the member, the pharmacist also contacts the prescribing physician, and they begin collaborating and just making sure that, again, we get the full story, things are in place, the member's getting exactly what they need, and that prescribing physician knows who the pharmacist is and about this RxProtect mail order program. From there, the process begins. And that's quite simply setting up logistics of shipping. Again, we're shipping it to the doorstep. Some of the medications you do have to sign for. So, setting up a time that member will be home is important. If it's a cold specialty med, it'll show up in a cooler, but there's a big DHL slip on the side of it that RxProtect will arrange a pickup. So your employee or member literally takes their medication out of the cooler, takes the medication in the house, leaves the cooler on the doorstep, and we arrange a pickup for DHL to grab it the next day. So your member's not doing anything except for taking that medication as needed. I already talked about that. Got ahead of myself. I apologize. But no, they get the medication at the doorstep, which is, if anyone's ever, I'm not going to get too far in the weeds with this, but if anybody has ever kind of got lost in medication adherence and some of the reasons that folks are non-adherent. One is cost, right? They have to decide some months if they're going to fix their car or pick up their med, or if they're going to space their med out every other day to make it last a month longer, which is a big problem, right? So cost is a big spoke in the wheel, big problem for medication non-adherence. The other is actually picking it up from the pharmacy. There's data out there that shows for every 100 medications written, 30 to 40 aren't even picked up. That's a big problem. That's a problem for you as a company. I mean, that's a lower productive employee. That's a higher absence rate. That's readmission back to a hospital. That's a worse chronic issue. I mean, it's a big thing. So the RxProtect, we're knocking out two spokes in that wheel. One, there's no copay, so that cost as a barrier is eliminated. And then two, the convenience or picking it up. They don't have to pick it up. It comes to their doorstep. So the top two spokes we're knocking out simply with this program, which is kind of like icing on the cake outside of just hard dollar medication savings. We invoice you as a third party. We work with McKesson to get our medications. It's pretty important, and we'll just kind of leave it here and circle back to the details for you folks who are interested in exploring this for your company. But we do bill twice a month because we're on a net 15 with McKesson. That's usually through an ACH withdrawal. Something about them really wanting their money or whatever. No, they're pretty strict. So we try to abide by their exact net 15 because that's very important to our program, is to keep that good relationship with McKesson. Then you as the employer realizes savings. So pretty easy process, again, targeting 1 to 3% of your employees. Some unique qualities, we've talked about this already, but just immediate hard dollar cost savings. Wellness programs in the wellness space is incredible and it's very valuable. But a lot of times it's hard to define an exact return on investment. I was in that space a lot and had these data points and had to sit on the other side of a table with CFOs and CEOs, and they're saying, well, what's my return on investment from using your wellness company? And I would say, well, we got this gentleman's A1C down from 9 to a 6, and what that means is potential savings a year and a half from now based on clinical studies. It's great and it's perfect and it's important, but sometimes it's not as cut and dry as just simply saying, look, if Mr. Jones had gone to CVS to pick up his Humira, it would have cost your company, based on your plan, based on the data he sent me, $4,800. Through RxProtect, it cost you $36, so we saved you $1,200. It's hard to argue with that, right? So that is one key and one really important piece of this program that I feel like is a no-brainer and easy to talk about. Another one is potential long-term benefits of this program. A lot of brokers that I work with really, really like this long-term potential. And that is simply the fact that RxProtect is not ran through insurance, meaning these folks we're helping are not going to be showing up any longer on your Rx claims data, which you might think is a bad thing, but think about being an underwriter, a stop-loss underwriter or a benefit premium underwriter, and having to underwrite that next plan and give that next quote. Well, your algorithm, those folks' algorithm is built, a significant portion of it, or a strong portion of it, is built on the risk of the upcoming year, the upcoming following years. If RxProtect is providing this employee exactly what they need, that medication they need that was prescribed by their doctor, if they're not showing up on the Rx claims data, your company is going to look healthier on paper. So that premium or that stop loss quote or whatever it may be, or maybe there's other plans that will be offered to you because on paper you're healthier. That's really, really important. And we know that the trials and the issues where your broker has to come back and say, look, the market premium went up an average of 17% this year, but yours only went up 14%. And that's supposed to be some big win. For a lot of companies, that's a whole lot of money. 14% is a lot of money. So removing some of these higher risk folks from the Rx claims data could have some significant potential long-term benefits in getting some better quotes. And of course, it helps your greatest asset, which is your employees and their spouse, their dependents. You're eliminating that financial burden each month and delivering that medication straight to their doorstep. So providing convenience and cost savings. Went too far here real quick. Sorry, go back. Our fee structure is pretty simple, and we don't have a monthly fee. We don't have a startup fee, a flat fee, an ongoing fee. We share in the savings. That's it. So if we're looking at that data that we were looking at where there's 30 employees and 15 enroll, and we save money with those 15, we're taking a cut of that savings versus what you would have paid versus what you're actually paying. That's it. So, there's not a lot of financial risk to your company to run this program. If no one enrolls and no one wants to do it, they don't like it, well, we're going to make sure that doesn't happen. We're going to drive some nice engagement. But say worst case, nobody does, then RxProtect there's going to be $0 on that invoice back to you because we're strictly sharing in savings. So that top 25 list I was referring to doesn't have to be a top 25. It could be a top 10, top 400. Sometimes folks send me the entire claims file. That's fine. That's what Excel and the filter options for. It's not that hard for me to go through and dial it back for you. But whatever's easiest for you. But really all I need, again, to provide that free data analysis is a medication name, the cost, what you spent on it, how many folks are actually on that medication, and then if possible, the gross cost per day supply, because some folks might be getting a 90-day script of Humira versus a 30 or maybe a 45 for some reason. So I want to make sure I'm comparing apples to apples in regard to daily cost. If you can't get daily cost, that's okay. We can dig into that a little bit further, and I can ask for a couple other pieces of info that'll help me get you the best savings projection. That's essentially it. That's our program at a medium to high level. Yeah, wanted to open it up and answer all the questions that you may have.
All right, this is your moment. Anybody have a question for Nate they want to bring up before we close the session?
Yes, this is Tammy. I have a couple of questions I'd like to ask. One, what kind of evidence or research have you shown that the possibility of this driving people to more higher cost and brand name medications? Since they've got those for free, what would keep them from maybe looking at a more cost efficient option?
Yeah, so the medications we're targeting, that's a great question. Thanks for asking. The medications that we target actually have no generic option. So really that's the only option is a brand name specialty med. Now we hope, they eventually make certain lifestyle changes or whatever it needs to be and they can get off that medication. We're not trying to incentivize or drive high cost in any way, but really that's the only option for those specific medications.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question was around combination medications. We're seeing that kind of driving some costs too in the prescription world. What kind of measures do you have where you look at the possibility of, two separate meds being a more cost-effective choice than a combination medication?
Yeah, that's a great question, and certainly one of the things that our pharmacist team looks at, especially in collaboration with not just the data that they have in regard to pricing, but in collaboration with that prescribing physician. So one, they would make sure that hasn't been tried in the past, and that's something they would talk to the physician about. But if the physician thought that would be a good idea and the pharmacist thought that would be a good idea, then that's something they could recommend. The member come back and visit that prescribing physician and maybe try that option.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
For the process of this, so when you all are receiving the data on which employees are on these high cost meds, are you all then reaching out to the employee stating this is a program that your employer has in place now? Is this something that you would be interested in participating in to reduce the cost or mitigate the cost completely so that the employer stays out of it? Or how does that piece work?
Yeah, we collaborate with with each one of our clients in a kind of a different way, just depending on how they'd like us to go about it. But the best way to do it is to be pretty, you know, we are certainly a benefit in the benefit sense. Like, it's a great program to benefit to the employee, right? But there should be a certain aggressiveness, or at least a certain tone to the messaging, because our client knows for every person that enrolls is going to save them a lot of money. So we prefer not to just do the whole like, hey, there's a cool program, do you want to do it? You know, there are a lot of programs like that that don't have a lot of engagement, and I think that's one of the reasons why. But as an employer, if you said, no, we know that we're going to save $20,000 this year if this one person enrolls into this program, then the message is a little bit different. And that can be driven in a number of different ways, either by the client or by RxProtect. So we prefer to, I have a kind of funny term like implied mandatory. So it's not mandatory, but it's direct. You know, if they're, whomever, employee, comma, here's what the program is. You get it for free, delivered to your doorstep. If you're on one of the following medications, please click this link and enroll into the program today. I mean, that's where you're going to drive the highest level of engagement and actually save a ton of money, as opposed to just making it some kind of whimsical kind of program that, may not be driven to help both the client and the employee.
Gotcha. That makes sense, to pull the employer out to where it's not like, hey, I'm aware that you're on this medication and it's on our high cost list. So it's more of like a buy-in from them.
It's a buy-in, and the letter, I mean, you are aware, somebody at the employer is aware, right?
Sure. But we also don't want the employee to be, put on that as well.
Yeah. They're like, oh no, Big Brother's watching. No, it's not saying, hey, we know you're on Humira, enroll. It's saying, if you are on one of the following medications, please enroll to this program. And then there would be a list of, 5 or 10, or depending on what that target list looks like for your company.
Okay. One more question for me. Sorry, I've had a lot today.
Yeah, that's great.
Since this is for the Wellness Council, I think a lot of people on this call are probably in hybrid roles with benefits and wellness. I know we have some people that are strictly in wellness roles, but can you kind of give us a narrative on how this would benefit a wellness program? If you're, combining it with the benefits, what does that look like?
Yeah, great question. So, in the wellness sense of it, again, these higher risk folks, imagine going to your primary care doc one day and you get some tests run or whatever it may be, and the primary care doc is like, oh gosh, I need you to go see a specialist. Like, okay, well, that's annoying. So I have to go see a specialist. The specialist confirms those tests, diagnoses you with a disease, which if you Google any of these conditions, they all say it's some sort of disease, right? So now you're freaking out. Oh my God, I have a disease. Not good. And then they hand you a piece of paper, or say, I'm going to send a piece of paper to a CVS, and you have to go get this medication. And you go to the CVS and grab that medication, and suddenly you're told, you have a new $150 bill every month. So in regard to wellness, this is not only mental health and helping, because you're eliminating that copay, you're getting the employee the medication they need, you're sending it straight to their doorstep, but really you're eliminating cost, you're eliminating them having to worry about it. It's a bit of a relief. So in regard to wellness, that's how I see it. It's like getting this one thing kind of out of the way, which no one likes, and they don't want to take it. They don't want to be in this position, but you're really making this position the best that it can be considering the situation. And that allows you to do some other great things. So as an employer, you're showing that you value your people, not only with wellness, but now with this RX solution. It's a combination of both. You're trying to tackle all of their pain points. So that's how I see it. That worked really well with me in my on-site wellness space where I was doing wellness or running a company that did, and our health coaches started having different conversations. They started having conversations around this positive view of a bad situation, and now that they're getting it for free and the convenience, and their employer cares for them, you know, we've got these other great programs that we can do as well. So I hope that makes sense, but that's kind of what worked for me. Just kind of took the elephant out of the room.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, this
Well,
is
tell you what,
Holly. I have
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
on the logistics that using your example, you go to the doctor, you're diagnosed for the first time, and they say you need to be on Humira. How does that work for that patient being first diagnosed, being told they have to take a drug that costs thousands of dollars a month? How do they go about knowing right away that they need to participate in the program and get their medication set up timely? How would that work?
Yeah, good question, Holly. Thanks for asking that. Traditionally, we're not going to pick up first fill. So that first fill, that employee is still going to utilize their normal RX benefits and go to their traditional retail pharmacy, unless they are incredibly savvy and know to go to us first. But we don't really expect that because that's hard to do unless we're just inundating them with this program, which we don't really expect that to happen, right? So what will happen is they'll fill that prescription. Part of our deal with our client is that we're getting a monthly RX claims feed, which can be automated through SFTP or with your carrier or broker, and we can figure that out on the data end. That's very simple. But what that monthly update does is now that person that was just prescribed Humira, it's going to show up in the RX claims data, and then we can reach out to them, or you guys can reach out to them, or whoever's doing it, and try to get them enrolled into the program moving forward. So first fill, usually no. Second fill and thereafter, usually yes. And a lot of times we don't like to do first fill anyway because that medication may or may not work out great for that employee. So we don't do one-off meds usually, meaning like if somebody just needs this medication for 2 months, we're probably not going to enroll them into this program because it's going to be a little bit too late at that point. These are medications that they'll probably be taking for, at least the next 12 months and probably for a long time thereafter.
One last question related to that. So do they need to have their physician resubmit the prescription directly to you, or is it because you received the data that it's been prescribed and then you contact them and they do enroll in the program? Is that all that's necessary?
Yeah, so good question. So the first step is for the employee to upload a copy of their current script, and they can do that electronically. So I'll give you an example. I do not buy my contacts from the actual group that does my eye exam. So I call my eye doctor and say, look, can you email me a copy of my script? I need to upload it to 1-800-contacts. They upload it, it's an attached file, download it to the computer, save it, and attach it as an upload. So from there, that's the initial. They just need to upload a copy of their current script. They can get that from their doctor or their pharmacist. At that point, one of two things happens, and that's where the pharmacist is wildly important in this process. That script's either an autofill for a certain period of time, which is easy, right? And that's a conversation that the pharmacist has with the prescribing physician just to confirm, hey, this is on autofill, we're good, right? And then that mail order is just set up, it's automated to arrive at the doorstep in a timely process, to ensure not a day goes by where they don't have their medication. Or it's not auto refill, and maybe it's only a medication for 3 months, and that member has to go back and see the physician before maybe a different auto refill script can hit. And so that's where the pharmacist and the physician collaboration is really important. So we're ensuring that the member goes back and does what they're supposed to do so that that medication is delivered in the right way at the right
Another question, sorry. I know like Humira in our program, it goes through the insurance company's specialty pharmacy, so it's not a retail pharmacy. Do you work with the Humana, as an example, has their own specialty pharmacy? Do you work directly with them in these cases, or does it complicate matters somewhat?
I'm happy to talk to anyone who wants to talk. I've worked with some PBMs. I've spoken to Humana actually with a major client we have on our pipeline currently. But in regard to working, actually like our process fitting into what they do, it's not like a puzzle. So it's either they get their medication through the Humira specialty pharmacy, or they get their medication through RxProtect mail order. So in regard to Humira, we would simply look at the cost of what you're paying for Humira, and if RxProtect can save you a nice amount of money on that, and you were open to it, we would drive those employees on Humira to go to RxProtect instead, knowing you're going to save money. Now, if we can't save money and Humana has a better deal, we won't add Humira to our list, and those employees on Humira can continue that Humana pharmacy process.
So I'll tell you what, thank you all for questions. If you have more, we can stick around, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do just for the interest of those watching in the future. I'm going to stop our recording. We really want to thank Nate for taking his time to share his expertise and help us understand a little bit more about how this program works and the concept of how it applies. So thank you so much, Nate. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Anybody on this call, questions, criticisms, positive feedback, whatever, feel free to reach out. I'm friendly. Don't worry. Text, email, call, whatever's easiest for you. I'd love to speak with everyone. So, and again, thanks for giving me a minute to share. Appreciate it.